So thank you all for staying on the line. Really now what we want to do is invite David Fraser to come back on and Mark Pedder to join Lesley Yates, and we'll encourage you to provide us with questions. So for those of you that haven't done this before, if you move around your cursor, you'll see a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, or it might be at the top right-hand corner. If you click on that, you can type in your questions and we'll put those to the panel. So I've noticed that there's a couple of questions already there. So the first one is to David. So hi, David. With 22,500 current members, what do you consider the total Australian automotive market to be, or the total number of businesses?
Well, it's very difficult, of course, to get clear data on just how many businesses are out there, but I guess the research that we've done would suggest there is somewhere between 30 and 40,000 businesses. Now, there'll be different shapes and sizes, of course, and one of the complexities of trying to understand how large it is that depending on what data source you use, the same business can pop up more than once, but somewhere north of 30,000.
Excellent. Yeah, look, and as we've said, the majority of those are small and small family-owned businesses. Even if they're part of a banner group, they're still independently owned, and that is the fabric of our industry and what makes it so great. And we need to do everything we can as an industry to make sure that we continue to operate that business model, because I think it's what makes our industry so great. Question here from Peter Rogers. Hi, Peter, another ex-director of AAAA. So, hey, Lesley, how long do you anticipate it will take for the draft legislation to be enacted? And then how much further along until we see our version of the NASTF?
Great questions, Pete Rogers. How lovely to hear from you this morning. So how long will it take for the legislation to be enacted? It's a tough question, and we're going to have to be ready for another round of government lobbying, MP lobbying, Pete, because its passage through the lower house will be relatively predictable. But of course, once we get into the upper house, we've got a whole lot of crossbenchers. So we've got a job to do. We've got to make sure that it gets through both houses. It does have opposition support, so I'm hoping for it to be listed early. But the trick will be to make sure that we protect the wording and that it doesn't get diluted in the Senate. So I've got a couple of issues here. I think it'll get introduced relatively quickly because it's not controversial, but we'll need to do some work in protecting the wording so that we don't have something pop out of the other end that is less than what we would like. So, I mean, I'm hoping to see it listed this year. That might be optimistic. So it's probably going to be in the first session next year. So that means it will be in the autumn sitting, just after the Christmas break. Look, I think we'll get an industry body quicker than we might have, Pete, given that the Minister committed to funding this morning. So I think when you've got a $250,000 incentive to get back around the table, I think that's going to push things along. I'm optimistic that there will be a legal structure before the end of the year.
Excellent. It's probably important to note that the Minister didn't announce it today, but he did allude to it. There will be a phase-in period. It's any legislative instrument. You can't just change the law and expect companies to comply on day one. So there will be a period, we think probably 12 months, where essentially the car industry will be exempt from prosecution for breaking the law, and that will give them time to ramp up their systems to ensure compliance. That's not to say, and certainly we've seen in other markets, you'll see varying degrees of speed, if you like, to compliance. We expect that on the legislation coming in, we would hope that a fair number of car companies would start sharing information from day one, but there will be others that will take longer, and certainly there's different processes that they need to go through internally to make sure they comply. So, but I think the mere fact that as soon as we see the exposure legislation, I think that the car industry will know that it then is a fait accompli, and hopefully we'll start seeing compliance sooner rather than later. This is a good one, and I know that there was a question earlier also, which I might join into this one. This is from David Richardson. Hi, Lesley. Will there be any provisions in the legislation for technical training to be provided by manufacturers? And the question earlier was about access to information for aftermarket trainers and TAFE colleges and so on. So if you could answer that kind of two-part question.
Yeah, look, there certainly is discussions at the industry body about it being a perfect platform for the provision of training to independent repairers. It'll be a voluntary process. The OEMs will not be compelled to provide training. But again, if we look to our American counterparts, the OEMs have absolutely embraced training of independent aftermarket operators. So if the system works well and the OEMs come on board and the culture changes slowly, I would expect and indeed hope to see training being provided through the industry body. And I hope that the vehicle manufacturers can see what a great addition it is to the reputation of their brand in the market, that they're supporting the independent aftermarket to care for their customers' vehicles.
And access to trainers, TAFE colleges, that sort of thing?
Well, look, I think once we have an industry body, I think it does have an opportunity to focus everyone in on combining our efforts. And certainly all of the TAFEs have been very supportive of mandatory data sharing. So it's not something that's come up specifically, but what a brilliant idea.
Yeah, well, certainly, as the Minister alluded to, and in Lesley's diagram, we will have a seat at the table on this new industry body, and as we will be working with our other colleagues. But I think it's important to note that there is going to need to be an upskilling of our industry on how to safely and effectively work with this new data and new systems, reprogramming, reflashing vehicles, that sort of thing, using J2435 pass-through technology and so on. So the training component is going to be critical, and the industry is waiting and willing to step up to ensure that technicians are appropriately trained and that training is available. A little bit of a change of pace here. We'll talk about warranties. So now Toyota are offering a 10-year warranty on the DPF replacement. Is this reliant on customers signing up for exclusive servicing with Toyota dealerships for that 10-year period?
Is that
Lesley, maybe.
Look, I think that 10-year deal, I mean, most of the extended warranty deals come out of marketing. That it's a marketing effort. Please buy our cars, we'll give you 10 years warranty. I don't think that Toyota one comes from marketing. I think that's come out of the DPF class action. So I think that's actually part of legal remediation rather than part of the effort that we're currently involved in terms of exclusive dealing and extended warranties. I think that is to make up for past sins.
Yeah, you're spot on there. It isn't conditioned at all, and there was no coincidence that they made that announcement the day after the federal court heard the initial submissions on a class action for Toyota owners that own vehicles with that DPF system. So Toyota trying to get ahead of the class action for remediation. I might, while we're on warranties though, where are things at with Mitsubishi? Obviously they've got a proposal that's with the AAAC for consideration. There was, I think, nearly 200 industry submissions, nearly all of them in opposition, but yet Mitsubishi marketing the hell out of the offer on national TV, a multi-million-dollar campaign. So what's going on there, Lesley?
So you would have seen some of our material come out saying, despite the saturation marketing, this is not a done deal. Now, the way the law works is that when you notify an exclusive dealing, you are free from prosecution until the ACCC rules on it. It is certainly not illegal for them to continue advertising. It is, however, immoral, and it isn't necessarily consistent with the spirit of the Act. The ACCC has sent a please explain to Mitsubishi and asked them a list of questions arising out of all of our submissions that are really interesting reading. I recommend you have a look at the ACCC's questions to Mitsubishi, and they have to respond to those by November the 4th. It's a pretty quick process. What happens next is the ACCC considers Mitsubishi's answers, and if they choose to, they can revoke the exclusive dealing notification, which means that exclusive dealing condition will not stand. And that would be our hope. I have to say, the questions they're asking are incredible. I would not want to be on the other end of a request from the ACCC to basically open up your undie drawer. So we're still in it. We're still in it. This is not a done deal, and more things will happen as early as next week.
Excellent, thank you. There's a couple of questions for David here. David, thanks for your presentation. In your survey, what was the average hourly rate charged by workshops?
Thanks, Stuart. Yes, and thank you, Nathan, for that question. So if it was a technician that had less than 5 years experience, the average hourly rate was $29. And if it was a technician that had greater than 5 years experience, it increased marginally, it was $32.
No problems. And yeah, we really do need to work, obviously legally, but collectively as an industry to try and lift those labour rates and avoid that kind of race to the bottom on price, because it does us a disservice as an industry. It means we can't pay technicians what they're worth, and we can't get new talent into the industry, and it causes all of these structural issues, and that's something that I think we as an industry need to address collectively as much as we can. Another one. Hi, James Mitchell. Hi, David. You mentioned in that the survey was undertaken pre-COVID. In your opinion, what would be the major changes, positive or negative, to the industry due to COVID, and what do you anticipate the results of the next year's survey would be?
Hello, James. Thanks for your question. Yeah, look, it's a really good question. I guess we'd all love to have that crystal ball. I think as we're already experiencing, though, the industry, again, has proven itself reasonably resilient to the impact of COVID. And I think there's a few tailwinds that are working to our advantage and will probably continue to do so for the foreseeable future. So I think I take a pretty optimistic outlook, to be really honest with you. I think whilst we're kind of somewhat restricted from being able to travel at the moment, and certainly I don't see overseas travel other than maybe travel bubbles opening up soon. So I think people are going to become more reliant on the use of their vehicle. We also saw the spike in new car and used car vehicle sales that occurred over the last 2 or 3 months. And of course, if it's a used car sale, I think as independent aftermarket workshops, where we generally get the benefit of that almost immediately. So I think there's some things that are certainly working to our advantage, and we should capitalise on those while the opportunities are still there. Excellent.
Thanks, David. I might throw this one to you, Mark. So it's from Ryan Davis. Hi, Ryan, from mechanic.com. And I might broaden it. So he's asked, is there anything that further that repairers can do to help the cause? But I'll open this up wider and say, what can we collectively as industry players do to help the cause, Mark?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I think what we're doing now is exactly what we need to do. Like, what Lesley's, been able to do with getting us all together, in regards to this Mitsubishi warranty issue is just perfect. And that's what the association is there for. Like, we're obviously there for all sorts of different things, but, when there's a threat to our businesses, and that's what that Mitsubishi extended warranty is, a threat to our businesses, for us to, collectively get together on such short notice and be professional and, and look like a collective group. I think that's what we need to do, and what we need to, to keep doing. I think on Craig Ondarchi just put up a bit of a comment about, contacting your local member, and that's perfect. And I think we've proven that through that whole data sharing thing with contacting local members of parliament, and that type of thing just helps the association, and then in turn helps our businesses.
Well said, Mark. And I just wanted to add to that. We try and use that real call to action that for instance, that we put out around the Mitsubishi thing, and when we were asking repairers to invite MPs to their workshops, which was an incredibly powerful tactic. We don't go to that well all the time, because we know that if we do it too often, we're going to exhaust people. So we do it tactically and strategically, and we only do it when we really need it. But I've got to say that every time we do it, we are just absolutely blown away by the support we get from you. So I guess the message from us is, if we ask you to do it, there's a reason behind it, and it's the right time and the right tactic. So thank you for the work that you do. We really do support it. Appreciate it. Sorry. This is a question from Marcelo Riotto, I think MTAQ. So hi, Marcelo. Do you have an indication of the makeup and membership of the new industry body? The Minister mentioned that the AAA's got a seat at the table. Who are the others? Lesley, I think you had a slide on that, but do you want to run through the other signatory parties? Yeah, so the seat at the table, the board members of the new industry body are the 5 signatory parties to the voluntary agreement. So that includes Motor Trades Association of Australia. It includes the Federated Chamber of Automotive Industries representing the car manufacturers, the Australian Automobile Association representing the consumers, ourselves representing the independent aftermarket, and the Australian Automotive Dealer Association. So we've got all of the 5 key players: consumers, car makers, independent repairers, parts manufacturers, and the dealers. Excellent. And there has been a push from some quarters to try and open that up wider, but I can tell you that the government isn't going to support that, but there will be subcommittees that will be able to provide input as required to the board for instance, in areas like vehicle theft or training or other areas. So the board will have the ability to be able to co-opt other expertise on as and when required. It will also have an independent technical panel. Will provide technical advice to the board for decision-making purposes, and it will have an independent chair to provide that oversight and adjudication. So we are a seat on that table, and it will be a body that works collaboratively, and we really look forward to that. I might put a couple of really good questions together that go to, I guess, the coverage of the new law. So Roger Nardi and Joe McFadries. Hi, Joe, from National Collision Repairer magazine. So Roger's asked, will our legislation follow the overseas right to repair and cut off at light commercial vehicles, or will it include trucks and agricultural? And Joe's asked whether it will make specific mention of the collision repair sector. So Lesley, I'll throw that one to you. Look, we understand from, we're getting as much as we can out of the drafters, it gets eked out slowly, that it will specifically be a motor vehicle scheme. So it will not include agricultural machinery. And as you know, there is a separate ACCC inquiry regarding agricultural machinery. The degree, we will, of course, push it all the way out as far as we can to make sure that we include light commercials and SUVs, because it's a large proportion of our business. As far as we know, that is the case, and certainly given the makeup of Australia's car park, that must be the case. So I don't think it'll go into trucks, but I know that's currently a debate within government. But my gut feel is, given that I think I know the working title, which is, it's called the Motor Vehicle Scheme, that it's not going to include trucks, and it may not include motorcycles. But we haven't seen the exposure draft. So we will obviously ensure that it gives us as much coverage as we possibly can. And what was the second part of that question, Stuart? Collision repair.
And look, the issue here is that it's a principle-based legislation. So it will say that the independent sector requires access to repair and service information in order to service, repair and maintain vehicles. So I don't expect collision repair will be mentioned by name, but I do think the independent sector will be defined as including collision repair.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's about accessing all the technical and diagnostic information to correctly diagnose, repair and maintain vehicles. So we fully expect that it will be and would absolutely expect that we'll be open to collision repairers. And in fact, collision repairers are really at the pointy end of the technology, because vehicles in accidents don't discriminate based on age. So there's very new vehicles involved in accidents, and often the collision repair industry is some of the first in the repair and service sector to be working with that new technology. So it is really critical. Tanya from Ultratune asked a question of Mark around the Mitsubishi 10-year warranty. I think Lesley, you covered that. Sorry, I hadn't seen that question, but it's certainly not a done deal, and quite frankly, you wouldn't want to be in Mitsubishi's shoes at the moment. Michael Clark, are there any, I don't think it's the cricketer, but are there any manufacturers actually on board with this at this stage? This is an interesting one. Lesley?
Yeah, look, when the Holden, as many in the forum would know, Holden complied with the conditions of the voluntary agreement. So through the AC Delco site, most people are getting the information they need in order to repair and service Holdens, but no one else is on board. And we're regularly receiving complaints from our members about a range of other vehicle manufacturers. And as the Minister said this morning, things are certainly getting worse, not better. It will be really interesting to see whether there's any behavioural change when the exposure draft is released, because in the last 12 months, we've gone backwards.
Bit of a shout out to, I know she's on this forum, but Paula Hilditch was instrumental in convincing Holden to share full dealer level information through the AC Delco technical site. And that will ensure that Holden owners and repairers of Holden vehicles will be able to get that technical information well into the future, even though Holden aren't no longer selling vehicles. The good news is Paul is actually joining the aftermarket next week. She's secured a job with Heller Australia, so it'll be great to have her on board working for the aftermarket in the future. Joe Fisher, hi Lesley, does this legislation include the sharing of electronic part catalogue EPC data?
Good question, yes. It's certainly we provided a draft of the legislation to Treasury right at the beginning of this process. So let me say it's in our draft, and when we get the exposure draft, we'll make sure that all the bits we want are there.
Excellent, thank you. We haven't seen the exposure draft yet, so we're hopeful, but we've certainly government are well aware of what we expect in there, and quite frankly, some of this definitional stuff of what's in and out and what's ring fenced from a security point of view and so on will be determined by this industry-led body with input from a technical panel. But if you go back to the core principles of what this legislation is trying to achieve, it's about providing all of the repair and service information that's currently made available to dealerships to all repairers on fair and reasonable commercial terms. And if you take that definition at its principle, then everything should be included. An anonymous attendee, sorry, I feel like a radio announcer because my screen is just refreshed. In regards to new talent, we see more and more applicants for job positions who have done a Cert 3 TAFE course without an apprenticeship. So the hands-on experience is poor. They're not attractive to employ. Has this been looked at with TAFEs in regard to the skilled workforce coming up in the industry? I believe the better pathway into industry is via apprenticeships. I might throw that open to the panel. and particularly Mark and David. Have you got a view on that?
David, you want to go or you?
Look, I saw that there. I probably see that perhaps a little bit more as a comment rather than a question. But look, I would agree. Based on, and my kind of comment is really based on more observation and conversations that I have with people. But I think the matter around talent and encouraging new talent into our industry, as I said earlier, it's an industry-wide problem, and it's something that we're all going to have to pull together to find a workable solution.
Yeah, and I think a big part of it is just making it, the automotive industry just a more attractive place to work. Like you look at, obviously we've all got a lot of friends in the, different trades, and if they're a sparky or a chippy or all that sort of stuff, it's just that little bit more attractive, and obviously they can earn a little bit more money. So I think we've just got to make it attractive again for people to want to work on cars. And it still probably amazes me a little bit. I think, from a technician's or a mechanic's point of view, once they are qualified and, what they are working on now, it's exceptionally difficult. So it's not an easy thing to do anymore.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mark. I think the opportunity for us that perhaps hasn't been as well exploited as it could be is the fact that the data and electronics in the cars today is so sophisticated. So, we know as they come out of the education system, there's a tendency to want to be in that sort of space. They probably just haven't seen the opportunity inside or underneath the hood yet.
Yep.
Excellent. Look, we've come to 11:30, so there are still more questions there that we're not going to be able to get to, but we will record those and come back to you for answers on those. Just before I close off, I might now throw to Mark for some closing comments.
Yeah, thanks, Stuart. And look, I just wanted to again thank everyone for jumping on. To have the amount of people jump onto a Zoom meeting, we probably would have never thought would happen 6 or 8 months ago, but it's just the way of the world at the moment. So thanks everyone for doing that. It's much appreciated, and it really again shows the strength of the industry. So a massive thanks to the Honourable Michael Sukkar. That announcement was just amazing, and it's just been such a long time in the process. So it was just great to hear. Craig Ondarchi, thanks again, mate, for jumping on. I know that you wouldn't be too happy with Geelong losing a couple of weeks ago, but so be it. Massive thanks to David and Lesley for their presentations. David, it was just fantastic to get that insight. And yeah, I got a lot out of it as well. So, thanks again for that. And Lesley, as always, even with a couple of technical hitches, which is fairly standard. If no one had a technical hitch, it wouldn't have been a Zoom meeting. So, but I think someone commented that the content, well outweighed the technical, and it certainly did. It was just fantastic. And probably just the last one from me, Stuart, is just probably on behalf of the board, is just a massive congratulations and thanks for that announcement. I know that, the amount of work that you, Lesley and Michelle and the rest of the AAA team have put into this has just been immense, and probably just a bit of a shout out as well to, some of my predecessors, Graham Scudamore-Smith, Bob Patterson, David Fraser and alike, that have just been instrumental in getting that, that data sharing thing off the ground. So, thanks everyone for jumping on. I think it's been fantastic, and hopefully we get to do this in person in the not too distant future. Over to you, Stuart.
Thanks, Mark. And can I just also shout out to you, Mark, and the AAA board, present and past. I've been in this job now for 15 years, and I've just received such exceptional support from board members all the way along, and I know many of them are on the call or on the forum today. So thank you so much. We couldn't do it without you. And also to my AAA team. I mean, this year has been the hardest, I think, we've all experienced in business. Certainly from my point of view, it has, but they haven't missed a beat, and they're a terrific bunch of talented people that love our industry, and they're committed to serving the members and doing what we need to do. And particularly a shout out to Lesley, as I say, particularly around the announcements today. Lesley has been side by side with me for that 10-year period while we've been going through the process, and numerous trips to Canberra and meetings and just really it's been such a tenacious effort, but we knew that this was needed to really secure the future of our industry. We're not there yet, not by a long way. Even when we get the draft legislation, get it through Parliament, our work over the next couple of months is around making sure that the wording is right, that we get that right, and then we'll put everything into that industry body to make sure that it works on the ground as well. And we'll continue to take the car industry on every time a car manufacturer tries to step over the line and bully the independent aftermarket and throw their weight around like Mitsubishi are trying to do with their condition warranty. That's a line in the sand and a line too far, and we'll be there every step of the way fighting them, because we've got to protect our industry. We've got to protect consumer choice and competition. And as I said at the outset, that's every day I come into work or work from the spare bedroom, which has been most of this year. The first thing I do is think about our industry and how we can protect and grow your businesses. So in closing, I know it's been a long session this morning, but to have over 900 registrations is absolutely phenomenal, and most of you have stayed on, which is remarkable, because I know how much time everyone spent on Zoom calls this year. But I hope the content was worth the wait, and particularly this morning and Michael Sukkar's presentation and news was so significant. It really is an historic day for the aftermarket industry, and we couldn't be prouder. Again, thank you to David Fraser and to Lesley Yates for their wonderful presentations, and also to Daryl Bottomy, Adam Pay for your contributions on the industry panel. And thank you all. We couldn't do it without you. We really love this industry. We're passionate about it. We've got a good thing going, and we're going to keep it going. So thank you for your support. And as Mark said, hopefully soon we'll be able to get together face to face and celebrate what is an historic achievement for our industry. Thank you very much, and we'll stay safe, and we'll see you very soon. Thank you very much.